Description, description. The more you describe, and when you go to do this pre-writing, go back and rewatch that ad again, right? Look at it, watch it with the sound, watch it without the sound, think about it, all those kinds of things. And then the next step is, because you have described and you've thought about kind of what things are standing out for you, the next thing is to say the so what. And you may have already started doing some of that, but do it again here because it's refining your ideas and clarifying. And talk to somebody about this. Show somebody this ad you're looking at and say, look, here's what I see. What do you think? Just you're explaining it. The more you put it in words, in your, just speaking it, the more words you're developing, because when it's in your brain, it's this kind of feeling you get, and it's vague, and it's this nimbus thing that's out there. But you actually have to explain it and get it out with your mouth. Then you actually have to make words. So whether it doesn't matter whether right or wrong, it's those pre-writings. Doesn't matter. Are you getting those out so you can then explain it better and refine those? So our next part is thinking about what's the point. So we're thinking about, like, how do these things that you notice in your description symbolize or communicate this idea of looking at and seeing what it says between the lines about contemporary culture, value, goals, acceptable roles in society, and of course that etc. includes how they're selling to us, what are they using, which is what we've talked about a lot. And it is, like, I'm kind of wowed in looking at the commercials that you chose, which are really a reflection of both you, but also those that are kind of out there more contemporary-wise, that they really have changed in terms of, like, overlooking now in terms of the zeitgeist, the culture. I'm just going to use it a lot so you don't forget it, okay? Zeitgeist. Yeah. But, what are they saying about that? This is where we're getting to what's the big deal, what's the so what. So when we look at, like, here's the print one. Here's what I did. I noticed the things that I pulled out in terms of this, the Energizer battery one, was that it's a bare room with few toys. There are no toys that use batteries visible. The setting, the pink walls. Oh, so wait, what does that mean? So this is really kind of from my first pre-writing, the things that I noticed that stood out. And then this is the sense I'm making of it. So it suggests it's not really a room the kids play in, because we decided that didn't look like kids played there very much. It's too neat. More like a place to hide. If they're hiding, it implies they're up to something, maybe up to something bad. The pink walls in the dollhouse, of course, that totally suggests it's her room. If she's in charge, she's making the moves. It implies she's the bad one, the slut. And I mentioned, too, when we looked at that one, that, I had a student a couple of semesters ago, and he's like, no, I see it the other way. And that's fine, too. This was my reading at the time I wrote this. The kids, they're very young, about 3 or so. They're both white and blonde. They're not able to make good decisions. This idea that, at that age you couldn't make a good decision. Whatever happens to them as young kids is something that is going to make a difference the rest of their lives. So this idea that this could be something that is really, changes them or warps them or whatever. And then I just threw in there, young white kids shouldn't be doing these things. I don't know if that's going to play a role in my paper. And then, of course, that text where it says, never let their toys die. It seems like it's a threat or a command. It implies they wouldn't be doing this if they had toys with working batteries. So, again, looking at what things from that description, those kind of things that stood out, and what do they mean. So you may have already started this. This is about kind of restating it or kind of thinking about it on its own a little more specifically. Christian, the attractive-looking females and handsome-looking men, the single lifestyle, people flirting. What does it suggest or imply? That this image of young people is being shallow, focused on only going out to party. And so there are some notes, too, like that stereotype of young adults, where he explains all the stuff he could buy with the money instead of paying child support. That for men, it's more important to have a nice new BMW. It promotes the idea that the status symbols are more valuable than children. So that we're really getting to with this part over here, what they suggest or imply, the in between the lines. Not what they're selling on the outside, but that in between the lines. Felix condoms puts a labor between you and poverty, just because I had to rewrite that because that's just like so sickly hilarious. Reassures viewers that Felix Condoms cares for them. And of course that from the Davis businesses and corporations are concerned for public welfare. I may have to redo my pre-writing examples because, the nature of commercials is changing. So I'm counting on y'all for good examples that I will say, hey, can I use yours as a sample? Okay. And then the so what, so after you do that, after you kind of go back through and either take what you may already have ideas for, expand them some by saying, okay, here's what I noticed, but here's what it means between the lines. You're going to do that. And then after that, it's about thinking about what is your big so what. So we're developing a working thesis. What's the big deal? Look at it and think about, what is this saying overall? Not just, yeah, it is saying they're using humor to appeal to us, or they're using this emotionalism, or they're saying, they're making this big statement about the difference between direct TV users and homelessness, or, whatever it is, that we should be inspired, that we should look outside the box. What is the big deal? One, with these ones that are all inspiring, there is that idea of this collective thing of, when we see more of that, instead of just seeing the sex that sells, or instead of just seeing, these kind of spurious claims of, oh, this is the best ever, and this and that, when we see something inspiring, yeah, it may have its problems, but at the same time, does that create a better outlook in us, right? Does it create a better outlook for the world in those ways? Or, of course, you could talk about, is that also problematic, too? Either way. But what's the big picture of not just one commercial like this, or not just commercials, right? Because we see a lot of these things reflected in TV. We see them reflected in all different ways in that way. In the way teachers teach, in the way doctors talk, in the way we move about our lives, those things play a role. Which comes first? That's that whole chicken and the egg thing, right? Does the media create the image, or does it reflect the image, and then we see it in the media and then we do it more? Or vice versa, either way. So you want to have a clear statement. Give yourself the question. What is... So what is myth, value, stereotype, assumptions, or techniques? I didn't get that in there every time here. Is it communicating between the lines? And then thinking about, what is it saying? What does that comment reveal about contemporary culture, values, goals, acceptable roles, what we should believe, what we do believe, what we value, what's important? What is that saying overall? That's the question you're asking. Move away from, just like in the literary essay, you may move away, or you move beyond that specific question with that one thing as an example from the perfect match or whatever you're writing about, and say, so what? How does this play in the kind of bigger realm of life? What does this mean for us? Good, bad, in between? I don't know. It's lunchtime. I am really hungry. Oh, did it move? So here's the examples of thesis. This ad, while I'm initially cute, is telling a different story between the line. That's me warming up to get to my thesis, okay? A close look will reveal that it appeals to its audience using fear and perpetuates the myth that women, especially people, are soiled from a very young age, and that distracting children with electronic devices can save them from themselves. I would totally do a better job now, but that's okay. That means I've learned something, right? Yay. Christians is the integrity of young people and the values of men are being stepped on, and through this advertisement, and of course we can add in our minds, or you could add it in your thesis, and others like it, same thing up here, the message that material things are more valuable than family, and men are more interested in material things than family is being sold. And so that's just kind of summing that up, looking at what's beyond just kind of the overall of happening in the ad. What is that message when you sum it up together? Does that make sense? I got distracted by being hungry. I need a Snickers, huh? Because eating lots of sugar when you're really hungry is really good for you. Yeah, that's not a myth. So there we go. I have the kind of in between the lines. And if you want to do the chart, kind of lay out things that you're noticing more now that we've gone through these, and do the kind of, here's what I see in the ad, or what happens in the ad, or here's the music, or whatever, and say, what are they doing here? How are they affecting us emotionally? Or what's kind of the meaning between this? You can do that. And then just kind of look at that and say, okay, how do I sum this up? What's going on overall here? What do I think they're doing? What's their point? Whatever it is, just throw it out there, okay? I can't give it to you exactly because everybody's paper is going to be a little different, right? Yeah, and that's it. And the other thing is cite your source.